and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, you're with GB News Live and I'm Tonya Buxton. And here's what's coming up. The new year is rung in around the world. We'll bring you pictures from east and west and throughout the UK. And in just a few minutes, we'll be joining some swimmers who are celebrating the arrival of 2023 by chilling out in the North Sea. Is it a time of new year and new you? Well, we've got personal trainer Darren Marshallek in the studio telling us the best ways to realise your exercise goals this year. Plus, those in charge of dishing out the New Year's honours have warned, don't pay professionals to put together an application on your behalf. I didn't even know that was a thing. But we've tracked down one man who offers the service and he says that he can increase your chances of getting an award by 6 times. And the border force strike has come to an end finally, but new restrictions for people travelling from China are coming in. And once again, it's in the name of the dreaded COVID. Travel journalist Simon Calder will be in the studio here to explain all. But before all of that, here's the latest news with Bethany.
Tonya, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 12. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. And some breaking news in the last few minutes. Official figures show nearly 46,000 migrants crossed the English Channel to the UK this year. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the voyage from France on 2 small boats. It brings the total number for the year to 45,756. Well, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in legislation this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within the Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He will lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January, while Pope Francis told worshippers to keep the former pontiff in their prayers.
Cari fratelli, sorelle, buongiorno e buon anno.
Dear brothers and sisters, good day and Happy New Year. The beginning of the new year is entrusted to Mary Most Holy, whom we celebrate today as Mother of God. At this time, let us invoke her intercession, especially for Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who left this world yesterday morning. Let us all join together with one heart and one soul in thanking God for the gift of this faithful servant of the gospel and of the Church.
Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth, highlighted the Lionesses' Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. And despite the rain, there were similar scenes in Edinburgh as revellers packed the streets to enjoy the first full Hogmanay celebrations in 3 years. But it was a much quieter affair in Scarborough thanks to Thor, the Arctic walrus. The Yorkshire county cancelled its New Year fireworks to avoid causing him any distress. He was spotted in the town's harbour, and it's thought to be the first one ever seen in the county. He's since moved on, and experts say he was likely just taking a break before the long journey north. In his New Year message to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the war with Russia will end this year. He spoke as missiles rained down in and around the capital, Kyiv. Ukraine's armed forces says Russia has launched more than 31 missiles and 12 airstrikes at targets across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of the year impossible in public spaces. President Zelensky vowed to continue his country's fight until victory.
Let this year be the year of return, the return of our people, warriors to their families, captives to their homes, return of our lands. The temporarily occupied ones will become free forever. Return to normal life, to happy moments without curfew, to earthly joys without air raids. Return of what was stolen from us, the childhood of our children, the peaceful age of our parents.
The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. 2 men have been charged with the murder of a non-league footballer who was stabbed to death in Birmingham on Boxing Day. 23-year-old Cody Fisher was attacked at a nightclub in Digbeth. 21-year-old Cammy Carpenter and 22-year-old Remy Gordon will appear before magistrates on Monday. And from today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined in the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's get back to Tonya.
Welcome to GB News Live. It began in New Zealand and Japan, and the first day of the new year has finally reached the western United States. All around the world, 2023 was ushered in with fireworks and celebrating. Here in the UK, we welcomed it in with a spectacular fireworks display in London, celebrating love and unity. The show included tributes to the late Queen and a message of support for Ukraine. Our national reporter, Theo Chikomba, has been speaking to some of the people out and about and what they thought of 2022, their hopes for the new year.
Celebrating the new year in style, thousands made their way into central London to catch a glimpse of this display, which returned after 2 years off. They joined many who'd made the trip from all corners of the UK and the world. Holiday seasons often give families the chance to recuperate and enjoy quality time like this. 2022 was a mixed bag for millions across the country. Some found new opportunities and others went through challenging times.
You know, 2022 has been tough for a lot of people, and you know, for me, I think it was, you know, the same struggles as everybody, but to persevere and to be able to come to this amazing city to see the New Year's Eve fireworks tonight and the ability to travel again and to see the world and meet new people, and looking forward to more of that in 2023.
As a country, we've celebrated together and we've also mourned as a nation. With a new year, it creates an opportunity to take on new challenges, but also to live a new chapter.
Yeah, making more memories. Yeah, having a smile on our face, I think.
Yeah, that's most of it. We're all smiling, we're all happy.
Yeah.
Jerks, there's a jerks, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, got to be happy. Smiling, contagious.
Yeah.
I'm from Canada, Vancouver. I used to live in South Africa, and now I'm celebrating New Year and Christmas in London.
In the new year, we're looking forward to more love spread in the world, and peace, and travel, and great landmarks.
Already, some have started the year as they mean to go on, and for others, it's a journey that begins today in what could be an exciting year. Theo Chikomba, GB News.
I'll be joined throughout the show by author and journalist Laura Dodsworth. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Did you do something interesting for New Year's Eve?
It depends how you find interesting. Anybody below the age of 40 is going to think my New Year's Eve was completely tragic, but I think I had a great time. The time for big blowout New Year's Eves is behind me. I like to start the year as I mean to go on, so had a romantic meal, lovely food, champagne, and a game of Scrabble. Trying to refine my brain.
It sounds absolutely perfect. You know what I did? First time ever. Because, Laura, you know me, and you know that I struggle with FOMO, missing out. So I did already have tickets booked, so I went out for supper with some friends, hoping to ring in the new year and come straight home, bed ready for today. I left at 10:30. I had my meal, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do what Laura would do. Come home, go to bed and have my brain ready for a kind of good show this morning. And we've got lots of things to talk about. Now, one of the things that we were discussing before was our New Year's resolutions. What are yours?
OK, I make New Year's resolutions every year. I love writing New Year's resolutions lists. So the top item this year is learn to shoot a gun. I really fancy this. It's a great outdoors pursuit. It refines your skills of concentration. I'm very outdoorsy. I love the idea of shooting and being able to eat my own food. So crazy New Year's resolution list starts with learning to shoot. And then, you know, normal ones like focusing on family, work, fitness, diet, you know, those resolutions you just have to refresh every year to keep them going.
But I tell you, what an unusual New Year's resolution Laura has, learning to shoot and eat what she shoots. Well, you know, that's why she is who she is. But here's one hangover cure you might not have thought of. Swimmers in East Yorkshire are heading for Hornsey for a New Year's Day dip in the sea. It's set to be a chilly start to 2023, but it's all in aid of a good cause. The organisers, Hornsey Inshore Rescue, are raising funds for the charity, which helps to keep people safe at sea. Our reporter, Anna Riley, joins us now at the beach. Hello, Anna. I've actually got FOMO because I love ice dips. I love kind of ice baths and cold swimming, so I'm jealous. How are you doing there?
Good. Good afternoon and Happy New Year. Well, it's certainly a cold one, but congratulations to these ladies and all the other hundreds of swimmers that have come out today to raise money for Hornsea Inshore Rescue. And I'm joined by Jill. She's one of the members of Hornsea Rescue. And I've got to say, ladies, the Hornsea Mermaids, you all look fantastic. You do really well turned out. What was it like out there in the water?
It was rough, very rough today, yeah. We wouldn't normally have swum on a day like today because we're very aware of the safety aspect of going in and swimming in the sea. So we wouldn't normally have swum today, but obviously it's a special day today. We're raising money for the Inshore Rescue. They are absolutely amazing, the work they do. They do all our safety talks and we support them by fundraising back for them. So, yeah.
Certainly dusted off the cobwebs, hasn't it? And you do wild swimming, don't you? That's what your group does?
Yes. We swim in the sea mainly. If we go anywhere else and there's a river or a lake or something that we can swim in, we'll get in and swim.
And looking fantastic while you do it. Thank you, ladies. I know you want to get warmed up. We've also got a leprechaun in the corner here as well. Don't know if you can see, but he looks great. There's been some fantastic costumes and a great turnout, all in aid of charity. And what better to do on New Year's Day for these people here than take a swim in the North Sea? I'll have to join them next year.
Thank you, Anna. I'll be joining them too, because I love that. Well, hopefully, though, those guys in Hornsea won't come into contact with another swimmer just a few miles further up the coast. This Arctic war has popped up in the harbour of Scarborough. The local council was forced to cancel last year's New Year's Eve celebrations thanks to the unexpected visitor, who has now continued his ocean travels. You're with GB News Live, and coming up, we'll be discussing your New Year's fitness goals. See you in a few minutes, right after the weather.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Now, if you're still hungover from last night's celebration, there's no better cure than a nice greasy breakfast. I'm not sure that's true, but GB News Southwest correspondent Jeff Moody is in the panniers, Wetherspoons in Barnstable, serving up exactly that. Jeff, how's that full English I can see going down?
Well, all right. I thought this was a really great gig, Tonya, when I was given this gig. But I've been eating fry-ups and drinking hangover cures since 8 o'clock this morning, and it's starting to weigh a little bit heavy on me, if I'm honest. But yes, everybody in the country is waking up pretty much hungover, and they're all reaching for the full English and a good cup of coffee. But apparently, sad to say, the experts are telling us this doesn't help in the slightest, nor does hair of the dog. It'd be lovely to have a Bloody Mary, wouldn't it? And give yourself the hair of the dog so you can go again. But all it does is make you drunk again. It doesn't cure a hangover. It just makes you not care so much. So what does cure a hangover? Well, the experts are quite dull on this one, really. They're saying the best thing to do is to drink water. Drink water and eat pasta. It's the complex carbohydrates that we need. But there is one old wives' tale that actually does work, according to the experts, and that involves a raw egg. I've been doing this all morning. No wonder I feel a bit sick. So what you do is you take a glass of orange juice, you crack an egg into it, like that, all down the side. Oh God, it's gone into my fry-up. I'll have to order another one. And then you stir it in. Oh, it's going everywhere. Oh dear. And you give it a little taste. And that is a really good way to cure a hangover, if you can get through it. Best thing to do, though, is really not to drink.
No. And to be honest with you, as a nutritionist, I'm not entirely sure that's right. But on the other end of the spectrum, millions of people will be recommitting to a new lifestyle to match the new year and pledging to lose some weight, some of that extra pounds that they've put on over Christmas. Joining us now in the studio is personal trainer Darren Marshallek. So, Darren, we all know that people want to get fit, don't they, over the new year, and kind of they think, oh, God, I've pigged out over January, I'm going to get fit. January's the one to do it. What do you suggest they do?
Honestly, to be fair, New Year, it doesn't really have to be the New Year that you start. It could be any time. It could be Christmas, summer. It's when the penny drops. So the first thing you need to do is be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. Start something that's sustainable. Don't say I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week if really you can only have time for one. So honesty is with yourself. And what I recommend highly, I always tell people, start with a class or a personal trainer. Try and extract some motivation, some energy from somebody else before you start to look for it within yourself. You know?
I completely agree. I think one of the things that people think is, oh, I can't afford to go to a gym or I can't afford to get a trainer. But actually, really what you can't afford is to get ill. So you can just do whatever you can afford. But I think classes are the best. And, you know, I've been training for 30 years. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder years ago, and I just got fed up of training till I met you.
Aha.
And what is it? Tell us, Darren, because I know what it is that you do that just brings joy to my life. So what is it that you do that brings people back all the time?
How can I say it? I can't really it's not really one thing, but we're going to put an umbrella and call it the Marshallek sauce.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what we do is I kind of extract your energy, marinate it with my personality and project it back to you. So however you're feeling, I kind of like take that, put a little bit of spice on it and serve it back to you.
So, Laura, I mean, you've got to come and join me one day when I'm training with Darren. What he does is I didn't know about bashment music. I wasn't a bashment music person till I met him. But then he puts on this crazy music and we just end up kind of dancing and the hour goes, and actually we've been doing some pretty serious exercise moves.
Yeah,
and we get through it. So you're a runner, aren't you, Laura?
I like running, but I don't do very long distance because, as you get older, it's not so good on the knees and hips. But I don't run so much for fitness as literally for pleasure.
That's right.
really, really enjoy being in nature and running. I don't run on a running machine. That's really tedious. But I like the gym. I think doing some weights is good, isn't it? Working on your muscle tone. It's good for your hormones. It's good for your bone health. It's good for everything. So I like a workout. But what I really love is dancing. So I do a bit of kitchen dancing, obviously, but it's not exactly a workout. So what you do sounds really good fun. I think a class that includes dance would be really fun. I might look at that for this year.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to that.
So what do you suggest people do who are really... They know they need to do something to help themselves, but they can't get motivated. What do you think is their first step to do?
I think, as I said, the first step is the honesty within yourself. Say you're lacking motivation and attack that first, rather than forcing yourself to be in an environment that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so honesty with yourself is the first thing. So the second thing I'd suggest is if you're struggling within yourself, reach out to somebody. If you don't have a friend to go to the gym with, as I said, the good thing to do is tap into a class, tap into an energetic personal trainer, just try and extract some energy from someone else before, as I said, you look for it within yourself.
Yeah.
And secondly, start something that's sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I tend to find is that a lot of people say, right, that's it, every day, I'm going to the gym every day, and they set themselves up for failure.
And that's what it is, you're setting yourself unrealistic goals. I'd say start with just 1 day a week, twice a week. Some people actually struggle to go through the door. My trick is, look, when you see the door, don't procrastinate, just walk through it. Once you've closed it behind you, your journey started. You can only go forward from then onwards. It's like walking, taking one step at a time.
Yeah. So do you get a lot of new clients in January?
Yeah, we do. We get a lot of new clients in January.
Do they stay with you till February?
Well, this is the key here.
Yeah.
When they're with me one-to-one, most of them tend to stay. I'm sorry about that, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
But when we're in a more gym environment, I think they kind of like tend to go with whatever society or the gym does.
Yeah.
So the gyms always tend to empty out towards February, March. January, everyone's in there.
Yeah.
Jazz hands all over.
And then is it the same before the summer when everyone's trying to get in shape?
It's always before there's a time where people need to go on holiday or look good. 3 weeks before that actual date is when everyone rushes to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, really, you need a minimum for a training program should be at least 12 weeks, 3 months.
So, Laura, are you the same? Do you just get fit for summer or do you do it all year round?
No, do you know, the secret of my success is I'm consistent.
Yeah.
I never have a really big goal.
That's the key word.
I've never wanted to be a triathlete. I don't want to run a marathon. I'm not aiming to look a certain way. I have been consistent for most of my adult life. And, it's funny what you say about the gym in January, because I'm going to sound really grumpy now, but I do not like the gym in January. There's all these new people and I'm like, get out my gym. Yeah. You're not going to be here in March. Just hurry up. Come on, get over this. Which I know sounds mean, because obviously we should be encouraging everyone to be fit. I had a personal trainer once, just for 6 weeks. It was like a really short-term investment, because it does cost
an
a lot
investment.
more.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
It
that
is.
personal trainers are too expensive or anything, but, it's out of my budget. But I did it for 6 weeks to get refit. It's the fittest I've ever been.
Yeah.
But something I found works really well as an alternative to a personal trainer, if there can be such a thing as an alternative, is going with a friend. Because I find if I go with a friend who's quite into fitness, then we motivate each other. So, for instance, I hate press-ups and planks. I hate them.
Worse.
But I've got a couple of friends that really like them. So if I go with one of those friends, they'll really make me do it.
I think that's what it is. Try and
pushes you.
Get someone to come with you and try to do it. I mean, one of my New Year's resolutions are, and you know this, is that I'm going to be mid-50s. My next birthday will take me into the mid-50s, and I am determined not to have an old lady's bottom. So one of the things that I do, I know you think it's funny, but it's a big thing. I don't want an old lady's bottom. So one of the things that I do is I do 50 squats whilst I brush my teeth. And I think that's, if you do nothing else, that's one thing to get you started, to kind of get you on the... And it's quite hard, actually. You have to work yourself up to 50, because when I first started, I could only do 10. And then you do 50. Do you have any other little tips like that you think that you can do in your day that might get people moving?
Well, what I used to do is, when I'm going to work, or we used to go to work before I was driving, the escalators up the stairs, I refused to stand up on them. I always used to not walk, run up the escalators, no matter how long they were, because in my head, it felt like I was doing something that was for myself rather than standing there. If I go into a building and I see a lift, I always take the stairs. I never jump into the lift. So little day-to-day things, even when you're doing your house chores, make it fun. Put some music on, dance around, sing to yourself, make it more enjoyable and more energetic. And that's what the key thing is, getting rid of that energy that you have, that pent-up
and
energy.
the consistency,
And
right?
the consistency is the key, because, you know, one brick doesn't build a house. You need loads of bricks. To get that wall, you've got to continuously lay the bricks. And the same is the same with fitness.
Yeah.
If you keep pushing, eventually you'll reach your goals.
So our thoughts for 2023, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to things like that, is just do, even if it's a tiny bit, right? Even if it's a tiny bit, do something every day. If you can't get a trainer, which I know is a luxury,
Yeah.
Then just maybe, like you said, get a friend, get someone to go with you, and that'll make all the difference when it comes to moving on.
Or join a class.
Join a class. Classes are great, aren't they? Because you can get very affordable classes now, and then you've got that kind of group environment.
And most classes, as you said, are affordable. Most classes are free, but you're in a class with like-minded people. You won't be the fittest person in there. You won't be the most unfit person. But what you will have is everyone with that, you know, combined energy wanting to be better.
Right.
I think enjoyment is key, because a lot of people see this as a punishment. It's like, oh, I've got to exercise to be fit. If you pick the exercise you enjoy, it's not hard work.
And I like the way you touched on that. I like the way you touched that, because fitness doesn't have to be a chore. People go to fitness for different reasons. Some want to be strong, some want to be healthy, some just want to get away from the kids, some want to get away from the husband, some want to get away from the wife. You know?
On that note, Darren, thank you very much. Right, we all know the New Year's Honours List has now been made public, with legendary names including Bryant, May, and many of the English women's football teams are getting awards as well. Also on the list was Jason Nuff, and who was the former royal aide, and he was the one that raised allegations of bullying against Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Nuff has now been made Lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order by King Charles. Now, this particular award is named by King Charles, which is really interesting. Members of the Honours Committee that choose who have awards have criticised companies who claim to help people secure a nomination. Sir Hugh Robertson on the Sports Honours Committee said the last thing people should do to secure an award for their nominee is to pay a professional to put together the application. Personally, I didn't know such a thing even existed, but earlier I spoke to one such company called Awards Intelligence, who charge up to £4,900 for it. The CEO, Mark Lewinslade, said many people don't feel confident enough to put together an application themselves. So I spoke to him earlier, and in a few minutes,
come to us primarily for help in nominating their friends, colleagues and family members for Queen's Honours, like MBEs, OBEs, knighthoods, that kind of thing. They essentially come to us for two key reasons. Firstly, to save themselves a lot of time, effort and aggravation, because it is a long and time-consuming process to do well. To put it into context, we would spend about 100 to 150 hours on a typical nomination, and a lot of people just don't have that time to commit to it. The other reason they would come to us is to significantly increase the chances of success. So the average success rate is estimated to be about 1 in 10 are successful, just 10%. There are no official government figures on that, but that's our educated guess, if you like. However, our success rate is currently running at about 2 in 3. So you're about 6.5 times more likely to succeed with our help and guidance. We pride ourselves in Britain on a very diverse society. Some people are dyslexic. Perhaps English is not their first language. So if you're going to have a diverse society, you've got to have an infrastructure in place to help and support people who need it. And that's what we're doing. We try to make what we do as accessible as we can to as many people as we can. And they want the best chance of getting what their nominee richly deserves. And we always offer people a free, honest assessment. And we do politely dissuade as many people as we persuade to go ahead. So it's not a case of telling everyone they're brilliant and taking their money.
Well, discussing the honours list, we will do that in just a moment with Laura. But first, joining us now to discuss is a royal expert, Richard Fitzwilliams. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
So the list is quite interesting, and there's some interesting names on it.
There most certainly are. I mean, you've got Dame Mary Quant getting a companion to honour. You have some excellent actresses such as Virginia McKenna. She gets the damehood. We can rejoice with Dame Denise Lewis, or indeed Sir Grayson Perry, and also Sir Vernon Bogdanor, one noted artist, and the other one top constitutional expert. So yes, they've spread it around in that respect. But what's very, very significant, firstly, there's a lot of attention on the lionesses. Several of them, 4, have in fact honours. Honouring the whole team would, I think, be excessive. They honoured the Ashes team once and a rugby team years ago, but it's difficult so far as the system's concerned because there are only a certain number of awards to go round.
I wanted to ask you about one particular award, which is Jason Nauf. He was working with the Royals, and he was the person that raised the accusations of bullying against the Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Charles awarded him his award. I mean, he was greatly regarded, wasn't he? He is greatly regarded within the royal circles.
Yes, no, that's absolute proof of this, and it's very significant. He started working in the communications secretary to the Cambridges in 2015. Then, when they became the so-called Fab Four, he was also acting as communications secretary for the Duchess of Sussex, and in 2018 he sent an email which alleged bullying accusations, which Meghan has very, very strongly denied. This email was sent reportedly to Simon Case, who was William's private secretary, and they didn't at that time take notice of it. However, subsequently, this was in March 2021, when the honours, when these bullying allegations surfaced again, there was an internal inquiry in the palace into these allegations, and in June of this year, it was announced that the palace would take note of the recommendations, but they wouldn't take it any further. I would mention that there is one aspect of this that could conceivably return in extremis to haunt the Sussexes. Obviously, as we know, excuse me, we know the royal family would infinitely prefer not to have to respond to allegations that the Sussexes have made either in the Netflix docuseries or subsequently in book Spare. We don't know what the contents are. But in these circumstances where they might just have to consider a nuclear option, I'm not talking about not asking the nation, inviting them there, not talking about the possibility of moving titles, which is a matter for Parliament if they were to lose Sussex. What I'm talking about is an extreme circumstance where the royal family have to consider some sort of nuclear option, and that might mean exhuming report about the bullying allegations, and it might also mean releasing those who are bound by non-disclosure agreements and allowing them to speak out. And that could conceivably be very damaging.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was very, very interesting to hear. Thank you. In a few minutes, we'll be chatting to travel journalist Simon Calder about how strikes and COVID could affect travel in the new year. But first, here's your news with Bethany.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, as 4 days of border force strike come to an end, ministers are warning that the PCS union behind the industrial action could escalate their plans for another strike to include seaports. It's after the impact of the walkout on airports was muted by the successful deployment of the armed forces. Simon Calder joins us here to chat all things travel. So, Simon, just how successful were the armed forces in averting any disruption from the border forces strike?
Well, it is fair to say that this strike, which ended actually in the early hours of yesterday morning, was about the least effective strike that I've seen in the travel realm intended to disrupt operations. Bear in mind that the government itself warned that there was going to be severe disruption. Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, said you might want to reconsider your Christmas travel plans. EasyJet said expect 2-hour waits. None of that materialised.
But was that because they were just kind of passing everyone through and not doing the proper checks, or were they doing? Because that's what they're trying to say, isn't it? That's what the unions are trying to say.
There's quite a lot of, I think, misinformation going on. So let's just remember what happens when you've got your passport. Yes, I've still got the legacy EU version. Thank you very much indeed. So if you are able to use the e-gates, then, well, what they did, the airports just put loads and loads and loads of extra staff on saying, go on, if you can possibly use the e-gate, that's fine. And all the e-gate is doing, if you're from the UK, from the EU, from North America, from a number of other countries, all it does, it just, you slot in your passport, it has a look at your face. Is this him? Yeah, it probably is. And it lets you through. So that's quite straightforward. If you're under 12, you're travelling with a family with young people, you can't do that. So the excellent men and women of the Army, the Air Force and the Navy then have a look at the passports, and all they need to do really for British people is just say, oh, is that the person whose passport it is? And if so, they let you through. What you do not get is anybody, and in the coming week or so, it's going to become a really significant issue with so many students coming into the UK. Those decisions need to be made. Is this person, do they have the right to travel to the UK? What's their record looking like? All those questions which a proper professional HM Border Force person needs to do. I think it was really just the timing of the strike meant that actually there weren't that many
it wasn't needed
cases. Yes. So,
but do you think the PCS now, the unions, are going to kind of make things more difficult, are going to come up with different strike action and more strike action so they are felt, because this wasn't felt.
The one which would really make a difference is in Calais, OK? So you've got the port and you've got Eurotunnel and you've got so-called juxtaposed border controls. And that means, well, as we found out in the summer, when you're travelling out to France, you've got French border police in Kent, and we had gridlock in July. Coming back in, you've got UK border force checking in Calais. Now, if they decided they were going to go on strike, then it would be a really serious issue, because you just get the queues building up, and that could be very difficult indeed. Also at the Eurostar terminal at Paris, Charles, for the trains direct to London. So I think that could have more of an impact than we've seen so far. Though frankly, if you wanted to have a disruptive strike, you would time it for this week, when you've got all those students coming back in, and the added bonus, of course, of the rail strikes, which are going to disrupt travel for anybody who, like me, depends on the railways in the week ahead.
So do you think they'll bring the army back in to do that?
It would be really tricky to put the UK army, station them in France. I don't know how that phone call with Emmanuel Macron goes, but I don't suppose it goes particularly well. That would be the big worry. But actually, we're going into quite a low travel spell, and it won't be really till maybe a bit of the February half term. But otherwise, Easter, that you would have an opportunity to make a difference.
Laura, what do you feel about them using the army for these kind of border controls?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But fantastic. I mean, it's just wonderful that the world has opened up again. I think holiday bookings are up this year, aren't they? Which I take as quite an optimistic sign compared to 2022. And the idea that the army can be drafted in to alleviate the way through a strike, I think is brilliant news.
Well, in terms of bookings, yes, they are stronger than they were. People are paying a fortune more, and that's partly because actually the travel industry has kept a lid on capacity. So there are typically about 1/6 fewer people flying around, and yet the demand is the same as it was pre-COVID. So guess what? The fares are going through the roof.
Yeah.
It's just not fair, is it? It's just, I understand the travel industry has really suffered, but I just think the population has really suffered. And if there was any way that we could keep travel down so people could have some joy again travelling.
Oh, look, there's plenty of joy around, and there will be plenty of great trips on offer. As always, if you want to cut the cost of travel, don't go during school holidays, because that is what really makes the difference. And lots
Are you
of families...
suggesting that, as I've done before, we take children out of school so we get a cheaper holiday?
No, absolutely not. That's illegal. And
is it illegal? I think you just get fined. It's not illegal.
Well, all right, so yes, it is punishable with a fixed penalty. Let me put it like that. No, I mean the answer is actually longer term to do what they do, for instance, in France, which is spread out the holidays, and that spreads out the demand.
Yeah. Now, what's going on in China and what's going on with these restrictions? COVID sneaking back in again.
Here we are back again, 2023. Yesterday was actually 3 years since the United Nations, the World Health Organization said, our China office has just heard that there's this new strain of something odd happening in Wuhan in China, and it's tied to a seafood market there. Anyway, here we are back again with the restrictions clattering into place. So a whole number of countries are now coming up with restrictions against China. Some of them are saying, as the UK is, you're going to have to test before you're allowed on a plane coming into the UK. Lots of medical people I speak to say, actually, it's not going to make much difference. Other countries, Japan says, right, you're flying in from China, you're going to take a test. If that test is positive, you are going to be put in hotel quarantine for a week. Now, the UK is saying, we're going to test 1 in 5 people on arrival at London Heathrow. And so I said, well, what happens if they're positive? And they said, well, we'd encourage them to steer clear of other people, but they can go wherever they want to. So it's.
Laura, what are your thoughts on this? It's ridiculous, isn't it, for an endemic virus?
Oh, it's just Groundhog Day. I can't believe that we're reintroducing testing for COVID arrivals. Like, you either do it properly and create a hermit kingdom, but we've seen now what's happened to countries who did that. It catches up in the end. testing 1 in 5 is just a ridiculous sop, I think, to public opinion. I think a lot of people don't trust whether China are being honest about whatever the new variants are and the extent of the cases and the dangers. There is this mistrust because, of course, you know, that's rightly based on a lack of honesty at the beginning, and the World Health Organization did not have a handle on what was happening in China. It looks very unlikely to have been anything to do with the wet market whatsoever. But we know that testing 1 in 5 people is going to do nothing, asking people to quarantine. Well, you know, hopefully you trust people will be socially responsible. But the fact is, of course, if you have you know, severe symptoms, you shouldn't be getting on a plane anyway.
Exactly.
It's just common sense.
There is just so much gloom around, but I do gather, Simon, that you've got some good news for us.
Well, yes, I think relatively speaking, I do. So we've just had, literally since 12 noon in the UK, which means that it's 2023 everywhere. I've just been able to conclude that this has been 2022 was one of the safest years ever for aviation. Very sadly, 174 people lost their lives in 6 fatal accidents, and then 2 more involved people on the ground. But that death toll, terrible though it is, represents 1 fatal accident every 4.5 million flights. And furthermore, it's the same number of people, I checked with the United Nations, as die on the roads worldwide in an hour and a quarter.
Wow.
So it just shows how incredibly safe aviation is, and that's something I think we should celebrate this year.
Absolutely.
By getting on a plane.
Get on a plane, celebrate, enjoy life. Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming back to home turf, and from today, thousands of bus journeys around Britain will be available for just £2. It's part of a scheme to help beat the cost of living crisis. Our West Midlands journalist, Jack Carlson, joins us live. Jack, tell us some more.
Well, Get Around for £2 is the scheme that's come into effect today. 130 operators outside of London, around 4,600 passenger routes around just England are going to be available and going to be available to get this offer of a single fare for no more than £2. It's all part of a £60 million government subsidy coming in from today until April to get people back onto buses, travelling around with the cost of living at a lot cheaper rate. Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, saying it takes around a third off the average price of a single ticket. In the UK, for cities, it's an average of around £2.80. For more rural areas, it can be around £5. And Mark Harper also saying that he reckons it could take around 2 million cars off the road to obviously try and help the environment in the government's view, and also some congestion around cities. Here in Birmingham, in weekdays at peak times, this city can get very congested, and so by offering cheaper public transport, cheaper bus journeys, the idea is you can get more people into buses and out of cars. However, in terms of the bus services, we know it's 4,600, but the Campaign for Better Transport in July published a report that said around a quarter of bus routes in the UK had been axed in the last 10 years, and the Confederation for Passenger Transport saying that they might not have an option but to cut more in April when things like this subsidy ends. Their boss reckons that they might have to have around £250 million in order to plug the financial gap in this coming year, but that this subsidy will help get passengers back onto public transport after the coronavirus pandemic. Currently, at the minute, levels of passengers on buses are running at around 80 to 85% to what they were from pre-pandemic levels. So this scheme, the idea is to get more people back onto buses at a cheaper price than they would pay before. To give you an example of how much you could well be saving, some of the biggest saves are between Leeds and Scarborough, where the usual price is around £13. That now, as a single, is £2. Lancaster and Kendal, where it's around £12.50, believe it or not, it's £2 for a single there. And Plymouth and Exeter, which is £9.20, ding 3 times, it's £2 for a single up until April. So it's good news for people here in the new year trying to use buses and save every penny they can in the cost of living. The Minister for Buses, Richard Holden, said that they want to try and move to a situation where they're not having to constantly subsidise and put money into these routes and instead get people back onto buses. So the idea is that when this subsidy ends in April, because there are a lot more people back on public transport, the bus companies themselves can lower the prices, and so this saving for customers continues.
Jack, thank you very much. Thank you. Simon, good news, right?
Oh, absolutely, and to be welcomed. My hope is that it will actually tempt people to get out of their cars. Now, some of those excellent examples that Jack gave, for instance, Leeds to Scarborough, Lancaster to Kendal, actually all that will happen is that Plymouth to Exeter, all that will happen is that people will switch from trains to buses because they're much, much cheaper. It's got to get people out of their cars, and that's going to happen if you are going to have if you can guarantee reliable services. That's what people cherish in public transport.
But that's what it boils down to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having a reliable service. And also, you know, it's till April.
Yeah.
And for me, April feels just round the corner. Maybe if we're going to have, you know, we've got a cost of lockdown crisis going on at the moment. I think it's going to last more than just April. It should go on for longer.
Well, what Germany is doing, unbelievably, probably in the next couple of months, is going to say, right, for €49 a month, that's £1.40 a day, you can travel anywhere in Germany by buses, by trams, by city ferries and by railways up to and including regional express trains. That is really going to make a lot of difference, but obviously it costs billions of euros to subsidise that.
Exactly. I mean, there isn't a magic money tree, so all of these subsidised public transport schemes sound good, but we're paying for it. We pay for it with our money, our taxes. Do you know what I find a really reliable way to get around? My car. I don't go on strike. Where I live, I don't have very regular buses. And consistently, the easiest, cheapest, fastest way for me to get around is in my car. So I don't find it very tempting. I think if you live in a city, you know, you're getting from one side of a city to another, that's great. If you live in the suburbs like me,
it is much harder.
It's not a great temptation at all.
So do you resent having your taxes pay for the subsidy?
Not if it works. No, not really. I don't begrudge it. But I think that sometimes these benefits are sold to us as free and they're not free. We pay for them.
I think that's the big thing across all of these things, isn't it? Is that they're sold to us as free, but there is no such thing as free, and we have to pay for them all. But I do welcome this. I think if it gets people, you know, out. I'm not even thinking about out of their cars, actually. I'm just thinking if it gets more people out because, you know, they're not travelling because of the cost of travelling. If this is going to help alleviate that and get people going out and travelling a bit more, I think it's wonderful. So there's lots of good news coming. We've got cheaper bus travel. We've got the safest fares that there are, so that's wonderful. Well, we'll be back in a few minutes with more from GB News Live, and we'll be looking at whether the hospitality industry can bounce back in 2023. But before that, here comes the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold, with rain and hill snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here are the details. It'll be a mild and rather cloudy start to New Year's Day across southwest England. There'll be some bright spells, but also some scattered, locally heavy, gusty showers. There'll be rather cloudy conditions across southeast England to start the new year. Some brighter spells are likely, with the odd shower too. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although still rather cloudy in the east, locally heavy, blustery showers in the west too. It'll be a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west, a mild day for all with limited sunshine. Showery rain will continue to slowly clear from the north, drier further south with some bright or sunny spells at times, mild for the time of year, but with a brisk southwesterly breeze. Patchy rain and hill snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog linger in places, feeling chilly once again. It'll be a mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy, mostly light rain at times, feeling chilly once again. Showers wintry in the north with bright or sunny spells for most, further cloud and rain in the southeast. And that's your weather today on New Year's Day.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Camilla Tominey. Join me on GB News on Sunday mornings for a politics show with personality on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back. You're with GB News Live. I'm Tonya Buxton, and here's what's coming up in the next hour. It's the start of a new year, but could it be the end of many relationships? This coming week, we'll see the National Divorce Day as lawyers expect a surge in marital breakdowns after the festive season. We'll be talking to relationship expert and coach Joe Hemmings to ask why. And the founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller, will be on to discuss how we bring people back together after years apart since the pandemic. And as former head of the Nighttime Industries Association, we'll be also talking about whether the hospitality industry can bounce back in 2023. And as we mourn the death of a British icon, we'll be joined by show business reporter Hayley Palmer to look back on the legacy of Dame Vivienne Westwood. But before that, here's the latest news right now.
Tonya, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 1. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK in 2022. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. It brings the total number for the year to 45,756. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021, when more than 28,000 migrants crossed over. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in new laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within the Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He will lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Pope Francis told worshippers to keep the former pontiff in their prayers.
Cari fratelli, sorelle, buongiorno e buon anno.
Dear brothers and sisters, good day and Happy New Year. The beginning of the new year is entrusted to Mary Most Holy, whom we celebrate today as Mother of God. At this time, let us invoke her intercession, especially for Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who left this world yesterday morning. Let us all join together with one heart and one soul in thanking God for the gift of this faithful servant of the gospel and of the Church.
Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth, highlighted the Lioness's Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. Despite the rain, there were similar scenes in Edinburgh as revellers packed the streets to enjoy the first full Hogmanay celebrations in 3 years. But it was a quiet affair in Scarborough thanks to Thor, the Arctic walrus. The Yorkshire County cancelled its New Year fireworks display to avoid causing him any distress. He was spotted in the town's harbour, and it's thought to be the first one ever seen in the county. He's since moved on, and experts say he was probably just taking a break before a long journey north. And the Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. 2 men have been charged with the murder of a non-league footballer who was stabbed to death in Birmingham on Boxing Day. 23-year-old Cody Fisher was attacked at a nightclub in Digbeth. 21-year-old Cammy Carpenter and 22-year-old Remy Gordon will appear before magistrates on Monday. And from today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined in the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. It's back to Tonya.
Welcome to GB News Live. It began in New Zealand and Japan, and the first day of the new year has finally reached the Western United States. All around the world, 2023 was ushered in with fireworks and celebrating. Here in the UK, we welcomed it in with a spectacular fireworks display in London, celebrating love and unity. The show included tributes to the late Queen and a message of support for Ukraine. Our national reporter, Theo Chikumba, has been speaking to people about what they thought of 2022 and their hopes for the new year.
Celebrating the new year in style, thousands made their way into central London to catch a glimpse of this display, which returned after 2 years off. They joined many who'd made the trip from all corners of the UK and the world. Holiday seasons often give families the chance to recuperate and enjoy quality time like this. 2022 was a mixed bag for millions across the country. Some found new opportunities and others went through challenging times.
2022 has been tough for a lot of people, and for me, I think it was, the same struggles as everybody, but to persevere and to be able to come to this amazing city to see the New Year's Eve fireworks tonight and the ability to travel again and to see the world and meet new people, and looking forward to more of that in 2023.
As a country, we've celebrated together and we've also mourned as a nation. With a new year, it creates an opportunity to take on new challenges, but also to live a new chapter.
Yeah, making more memories. Having a smile on our face, I think.
Yeah, that's most of it. We're all smiling, we're all happy.
Yeah.
Jokes, it's a jokes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, got to be happy. Smiling, contagious.
Yeah.
I'm from Canada, Vancouver. I used to live in South Africa, and now I'm celebrating New Year and Christmas in London.
In the new year, we're looking forward to more love spread in the world, and peace, and travel, and great landmarks.
Already, some have started the year as they mean to go on, and for others, it's a journey that begins today in what could be an exciting year. Theo Chikumba, GB News.
I'm joined again by author and journalist Laura Dodsworth. So, are you optimistic for 2023?
Yes, I always start every year optimistic, but this year especially so because we've been through a really rough few years. Let's not even talk about that. I turn 50 this year.
It's great.
Big year. And so if I don't make this year good, what year is going to be? I feel like it's a year to consolidate, for me personally. So I've got that kind of optimism about the year. I'm planning on having lots of fun. I don't think it's all good news. Inflation's set to hit 19% in early 2023. We're all noticing it, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're all noticing that. Food, I think, the inflation was 16.5% over the last year, and so there's lots of kind of worries in the background. But generally, I feel optimistic.
And I think we have to find our pleasures where we can, whether it's just a cup of coffee with friends or something. You must find the joy in life.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that comes out this time of year is the honours list. Mm-hmm. Now, I do fancy myself as a dame, I do, and I gather there's a, as we were talking about in the earlier hour, there are companies that you can go to that will increase your likelihood of getting an honours by up to 6%. You've got to pay over £5,000 to do so, and sometimes a lot more than that, so might not be happening this year. But what do you think of the honours list?
No,
it is cheating.
It is cheating. I totally get why people do it, but the idea of paying to put yourself forward for an honour is the opposite of honour. It's dishonourable. No to those companies. Anyone who's set up those companies should be slightly ashamed. I'm not a fan of that at all. So I love the idea of an honours system. Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic, and it can really warm your heart when you see a name that you like and approve of on the list, especially for things like gallantry. So I love the honours list, except the thing is that the three words that come to my mind these days about the honours list are Sir Jimmy Savile.
Why are you still calling him Sir?
Yes, this is exactly my point. Because the thing is that you cannot revoke that posthumously. The knighthood is a living order and it dies with the person. So, sure, sometimes they get it wrong. If he had been, if his vile sex acts had been uncovered while he was alive, the knighthood could have been stripped from him, but it isn't. There's this picture of him with the big cigar in his mouth, holding his knighthood medal, grinning, and it's a really haunting and unpleasant image. I also think the whole honours system is a bit of a chumocracy.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And also a lot of people get honours and they get this fantastic thing for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's somebody's name on there this year, and I don't want to be churlish about it, but it's David Halpern, and he has got his honour for, I think they're called the What Works Centres. So that's within the civil service. It's about making evidence-based decision-making and policy-making. Great idea, can't really begrudge him that, but he's also the head of the Nudge unit. You know, the Nudge is my arch nemesis, as you know. The idea that the government has been running units to subliminally, unconsciously influence people, I find really insidious.
And disturbing.
Disturbing.
It's disturbing to think that our governments are nudging us into thinking a certain way.
Yeah.
So we stop thinking for ourselves, and this man is being awarded for helping them do that.
So he's on the honours list. So, you know, you can see people on there and you think, well, you know, it's just because he's put in so many years in the civil service or whatever. And
I actually have a controversial thought here that I don't think politicians or civil servants should get honours because they're too close to it. They're too close to the people that are awarding it.
Do you know what? That's not a bad idea, except it is also important to award people for public service, and in theory that should include politicians and civil servants. Do you know who hasn't got a damehood yet, and I think she should?
Who?
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
So she has an honour, I think it's called a Companion of Honour, which is for services to literature. Great. And she also has an OBE, but why doesn't she have a damehood? She should do. You know, she's sold hundreds of millions of books. She's one of the most important figures, arguably, in the arts world from this country. There's always lucrative film spin-offs. She's also contributed hundreds of millions to charity.
Yeah.
And I can't help wondering if a lot of the anti-Rowling sentiment on social media and, you know, the voices of her very ungrateful young cast...
Yes, aren't they
part of
just?
this kind of unpopular attitude towards her because she has stood up for women's sex-based rights and she gets called transphobic. Let's see if J.K. Rowling gets a damehood in the next couple of years. If she doesn't, there's something wrong.
I think maybe Laura and I will start a petition to get her that damehood. Well, you are now with GB News Live, and coming up, we'll be joined by Alan Miller asking whether the hospitality industry can bounce back in 2023. And I think that's something that we've got to help hospitality do. We've got to help hospitality to bounce back. So, coming up now is a quick break.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GB News Live. The new Ofgem energy price cap levels come into effect today, rising to $4,279 per year. However, the government's energy price guarantee schemes means typical bills will remain at $2,500 per year, on average until April. Despite the scheme, research has shown that more than 3/4 of households in the UK will be pushed into fuel poverty this month. Anna Riley has a report.
£20.
Yeah.
Kate Johnson spends an average of £10 a day on a prepaid fuel meter, and she's one of the millions of people in Britain living in fuel poverty. The mum lives with her 2 children and partner in York. The family's only income is from Universal Credit, and they struggle to heat their home.
We've all got medical conditions. I've got fibromyalgia and arthritis. And if I don't have the heating on, it's really, really painful. At some point, I can't barely walk. And then the kids have got, like, additional needs and stuff. So the heating is something that we definitely do need. The week before, when it was really, really cold, we put on just over £100 for the week, as it was too cold not to have it on during the day.
Despite government support, Kate's worried about rising costs of energy and fears price hikes.
They've made quite a few contributions towards the fuel bills, but say it's still a drop in the ocean, especially when you've got to have it on every day for medical reasons or controlling the mould in the house. So I still think something should be done, because at the end of the day they're just going to keep increasing it. And it'll get to the point where people have to choose whether to sit in the cold or to feed your family or pay your rent.
The community food bank down the road from Kate provides a lifeline for her family. It's run by John McGall, who feeds 100 people a day, 7 days a week, from the shed outside his house. And with the fuel bills rising, John can only see the numbers of people he helps increasing.
It used to be food or heating. Now it's rent or mortgage. We've gone even further, basically. So rent down here has gone up an average of £300 a month. So that's £300 off your shopping bill, heating, everything, your fuel for your car to go to work. So we do have a lot of people who do work, but they just don't earn enough money anymore. They're catching the tail all the time. And then if a lot of people who are in debt, they're catching up. So when we get the wage, we're paying the debt that they owe. It's just a vicious circle.
With snow set to hit the UK this month, the festivities of Christmas will feel long gone for people like Kate, who'll be wrapping up warm and worrying about paying for the heating. Anna Riley, GB News, York.
And with those high energy costs still reeling from 2 years of COVID shutdowns, Britain's hospitality industry has taken a battering. Let's speak now to Alan Miller. He's the former chair of the Nighttime Industries Association, founder also of the Truman Brewery in East London, and now co-founder of the Together Association, which aims to bring people together post-lockdown. So, Alan, what can we do to help the hospitality industry now?
Well, I think one thing, Tonya, is that actually your viewers and people that are watching and thinking about this can actually let their local councillors know that hospitality should have late night extensions. There's no reason why things should close at 11 and 12 midnight. And in fact, one of the ironies of London supposedly being an open city, as the mayor keeps saying, is that most things close by 2 a.m. That is a scandal. Now we're under severe pressure and, inflation and energy prices and all the things you said. We actually lost over 15,000 venues during lockdown. And many of us warned at the Together Declaration and others that what lockdowns would actually do, not just to hospitality, but all to small, medium-sized enterprises and impact them. But one thing that still has not happened in Britain is that we should be able to execute and implement something that actually came around a long time ago with the Licensing Act, that we're allowed to have 24-hour licensing, but no councillors seem to want to implement it. Now, if they're serious about rejuvenating cities, towns up and down the country, this should be a key thing. And frankly, I helped set up a nighttime economy commission with the Mayor of London, and it was initially with Boris Johnson and then Sadiq Khan. And we put in a whole task force, and we put in measures to advise for it. And councillors in London and across the UK have absolutely not wanted to do it. And in many ways, unfortunately, it's been the same rhetoric that we've seen around public health, that the public is not to be trusted, it can't be let out late at night, they have to be restricted and limited. And actually, we know that we light up our streets, that's where we fall in love. That's where new cultural phenomena exist, whether it's in food or music or dance or fashion or hoteliering. It's actually one of the most dynamic arenas that we've got, nearly 70 billion per annum, 6% of workforce. So one enormous thing that could be done is an advocacy of later licensing and less restrictions, in my opinion.
And do you think that will increase the footfall? Because the footfall is not back yet, is it, since the pre-COVID times? Footfall, people aren't going back into the restaurants. They're not going back into hospitality like they did before COVID. So do you think by having a late night licences, that might help increase the footfall? As well as getting our livers back?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a number of things that have happened. That the whole, the cost of things, the cost of an average price of a beer in London, anywhere from £8 to £10, is enormous. And unfortunately, the cost of lockdown, cost of living crisis is having ramifications on everyone. But we need to be able to find opportunities to generate more revenue. And we've got some of the most dynamic professional entrepreneurs in lighting, in sound, in clubs, in bars, in food. Everything. We should have more 24-hour night markets like they have in Asia. If you go to Barcelona or internationally, you'll see intergenerational families coming out late at night, enjoying the food throughout the day and night. We should be able to explore these opportunities and create new options for people. But there's no getting away from the fact, not to look back, but to say that when you shut down society and you impose limits and measures, even if you try and provide a little bit of money, and actually a lot of money was provided for hospitality, the ramifications are going to be significant. And that's why, beyond not just hospitality, but collectively, I think everyone's got to actually be able to say, well, we need the public at the heart of all of this. We need to be able to say what our cities and our towns look like. And one of the things I'm really concerned about, Tonya, is that not just in licensing, but actually around cities around the UK, there's a constant attempt to limit us. And Laura was talking earlier about why cars are important. But the 15-minute and the 20-minute city that we see, the low traffic neighbourhoods, the whole ULEZ, the expansion of that the mayor's trying to do, even though 60% of people said they did not want it.
Before you carry on here, can I just also say, because I think this is what leads on really nicely to this, is that you are the co-founder of the Together Association, which I'm one of the founder members of as well. I'm very proud to be. And, talking about the public now, these are things that you talk about all the time with that and get people's knowledge out there. So how can people help themselves in this situation?
Well, I think it's really important that the public is at the front and centre of things, Tonya, today. I think that locally, regionally and nationally, we should all have our voices heard. There's a sense sometimes that there's not much we can do, that there's just one flow of direction. But actually, as you were with me when we went to 10 Downing Street and we delivered the petitions, both against the vaccine mandate and vaccine passports, 300,000 people, over 350,000. What we demonstrated is that when people actually stand up and have their voices heard and campaign and get calls to action, let their MPs and councillors know, let trusts know, actually activate things locally, get organised, get involved, you can have a difference, you can make a difference, your voice can be heard. And it was in Britain that we stopped the mandates. And many people around the world said, we don't think you're going to be able to do that. But when that happened in Britain, in England specifically, see how it fell away everywhere else. And I think that we should take that as recognition that we can have a big impact. And that's also true about other areas we've seen that in the online safety bill, in the free speech question, that there's been pushback from Together and others that have been saying we need to be able to have open debate. Free speech is paramount. We've now seen with the Twitter files and many other things how journalists and doctors and citizens have been suppressed and restricted. We need to do that. We need to continue with that. We have a range of areas that we're working on that the public, we're asking people to be involved. We have members and we have signatories and we have local and regional ambassadors. And we also are launching a cabinet this year that will have a range of experts in different areas so that we can continue with this. But we've got some key areas that we're working on. One is the continuation to get the care workers reinstated and compensated. You just had a piece on how the care sector is in such a problematic situation. Well, we lost 40,000 plus care workers. So that's one thing, and that's what we're carrying on with. A really crucial thing that we're doing is we're saying the public, one area that really impacts people on a day-to-day basis is getting around locally and being able to do that.
And that's what Laura, that's what Laura was just talking about, actually, is that keeping hold of our cars, Laura, is quite important, keeping hold of our autonomy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most fashionable of opinions at the moment, but I agree with Alan completely about the 15-minute neighbourhoods and, having the right to roam, be free range, be able to travel around. I'd hate to be stuck within 15 minutes of where I live. It feels like a very constrictive and unpleasant form of life. Everything that Alan was just talking about there, though, is kind of sums up the essence of what would give me hope for 2023, though, because Together was a grassroots organisation.
Yes, we were.
And, he talked about the successes of delivering a petition with over 1/3 of a million names to Downing Street and potentially being a very important contribution in altering the course of vaccine mandates, which was something truly terrible, horrific and authoritarian that we swerved in this country. So that's that shows what happens when people do organise and come together, because you can feel very disenfranchised by the main political parties, but people have to remember they can take action. And in fact, talking about honours lists as well, Alan Miller could be somebody who deserves
Are you still with us? Do we still have Alan with us?
Year.
Alan, so Laura and I have been talking about the honours list, and we just felt that you would be... We are nominating you to be Sir Alan Miller because of the work that you've done with the Together Association and how myself, it's empowered me to know that I can go and do something, because sometimes I think we're a bit lost and we think we're helpless. But joining an association like this, and there are many of them around, gives you power. So how can someone join us?
Yes. So if you go to the togetherdeclaration.org, you can sign up as a member and you can join and become part of this. We have local and regional hubs. We have an event in Manchester on the 12th of January, which is on the costs of lockdown, cost of living crisis. In fact, Dominic Samuels is going to be speaking there, as well as Professor James Woodheisen. We have an event in Birmingham in February. We have events around the country. One thing that's really important is our slogan, Take Back Democracy. It's not just a slogan, it's something that we encourage and we want people to get engaged with, because whilst we can criticise, which is important to do, the way to actually have real agency is to get involved ourselves and to shape and curate things the way we want them. Our elected representatives have to be accountable to us. And if they're not going to be, then we have to have a conversation about what we're going to do about that too. And I agree with Laura. I think 2023 is a really big opportunity for people to take that democracy, to put the public at the heart of things, to say that, when we say that we don't want low traffic neighbourhoods and you ignore us, local councillors, we're going to challenge that. In fact, on January the 7th in Haringey, that's happening. When we say that we don't want ULEZ to be expanded because it will damage businesses and residents and it's actually very costly, we don't want you to ignore us, Mayor of London. We want that as a democratic response. And if you're not going to listen to these things, we're going to actually say, well, we need to take back democracy ourselves. We need to get people perhaps elected. We need to stand and compete and put these things forward. At the heart of all these areas of what's going on in the NHS, transport, health, education, all of these things is the public has been sidelined. We've been treated with contempt. There are technocrats that say the markets say, or this is what we're going to do to you because you're not really part of this situation. We're the great and the good and we decide. And what's really crucial is that demos I mean, you know this from where, your background, Tonya, but Demos and Crucia, the power of the people, the very notion that people power is essential. And that's the way we keep things honest. And so we're inviting as many people that think this is important to get involved with us, to go to togetherdeclaration.org, to come and follow us on Twitter @TogetherDec, to come to our events, to watch our podcasts, to actually join a local group, to actually set one up yourselves with people if you want around the country, and to start having our voices heard much more around all of these campaigns. It's really essential that we take back democracy together.
That's it. On that note, thank you so much, Alan Miller. Let's take back democracy together. I love that. Thank you. All right, in a few minutes, we'll be chatting to relationship expert Joe Hemmings about an expected surge in divorces in the new year. But first, here's your news update with Bethany Elsey.
Tonya, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 31 minutes past 1. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK in 2022. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. It brings the total number for the year to 45,756. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021, when more than 28,000 migrants crossed over. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in new laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He will lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. And celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth, highlighted the Lioness's Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Tonya will be back in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to GB News Live. It's not all new beginnings as 2023 gets underway. It's also a time when many people decide to call it quits, not least in their marriage. Divorce lawyers are predicting a surge in cases, and as it happens, National Divorce Day is on Tuesday. Unusually this year, more men are expected to seek a split than women. So what's behind this? And I'm joined now by relationship coach and psychologist Jo Hemmings. Hello, Jo. So what is this surge about? Why is this happening?
Hi, Tonya. It's a number of factors. There's always a spike in January because it's couples who have either put off until after Christmas issues that they've got, knowing they just want that Christmas and then they'll get on with it. Other couples who think perhaps we can get through Christmas, perhaps we'll be all right, and find they haven't. But this year particularly, you've got all the added pressures of the cost of living crisis, of course. That's just really adding to the burden of families, and it's very difficult to live in harmony under those sort of circumstances. And you've got the no-fault divorce law that came in April, which means that there is no blame, there doesn't have to be blame on either side, and therefore you can't contest that divorce. And I think, men particularly may be sort of thinking, right, that's fine, my wife can't then contest this divorce, and we don't have to cite unreasonable behaviour or anything else. You simply, it's like a quickie divorce. So whatever happens, all those factors can work.
So whatever happens, you can get a divorce now. So if somebody was, for example, trying to divorce me on the grounds of my unreasonable behaviour, I could contest it and stop the divorce from going through. That no longer exists.
That no longer exists. So there is no blame on either side now. So these divorces are going through quite quickly. Solicitors are dealing with them, as a sort of package deal, and not very expensive, and they're going through. But, January has always been the spike. September's also a bit of a spike. The couples that have been on holiday together, and it's, that intense time together that they're not necessarily used to, is another time. But January particularly is a tough one because in my own practice, relationship counselling also goes up in January. You get the couple saying, well, we're not going to divorce yet. We're going to see if we can repair what's going on. But for those that can't, then obviously it's a tough month, and they feel they've got to do something about it.
Do you think this new clause and this new divorce clause is going to make people give up faster than they would if they had to go through something a little bit more? Do you think it's a kind of dooming thing for relationships to have some easy way out, not to have to fight for it a little bit more?
I mean, that's always a good question. Yes, in part, that's true. But also, in part, there are people who can get out of, really troubling marriages without their partner contesting it. And, it just makes it much less complex and much less expensive and psychologically difficult. So, yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. But I think the plus sides of feeling that you have that freedom when you need it, when your marriage needs to come to an end without it being challenged, probably outweighs that.
Yeah. So would you, not forget about a disruptive or a kind of abusive relationship, but would you always encourage people to work on their relationship? If there's no abuse going on, it's just kind of communication is broken down, do you think that people should always try and stay together?
Not always. People have different reasons for staying together. You'll often hear couples say they'll stay together for the children, and actually children pick up very quickly on a unhealthy or a toxic relationship. So that probably isn't a good enough reason to stay together. And look, I think if you think, it's always better if you know there's something not quite right than when you get to the point where you know there's something terribly wrong. It's much easier to repair relationships at an earlier stage. No, some couples come to me for counselling and actually you kind of know quite quickly that they simply have grown apart, no abuse involved, they've just grown apart out of love to the extent that there isn't anything you can do to repair it. But for the majority of couples who recognise they've got into poor habits, poor behaviour, neglect, not sort of being considerate enough or whatever it is, bringing that communication is the key word. Bringing that back into a relationship can very often be the saving of it.
Joe, so there you go. One of the things you need to do is communicate more. Thank you. Laura, are you surprised at the surge in divorce rates?
I'm not, because of the no-fault changes. So I think that we don't really know anymore as a society what our attitude to marriage and divorce is. I don't think we take it seriously. And I think that's really sad for society. It's sad for families, one-parent families. And I say this as someone who's divorced. I was with my ex-husband for 20 years, and it's a great sadness that the marriage didn't work out. I think it's all really complicated. There used to be almost no divorce. Before 1914, something like 1 in 450 marriages ended in divorce. So there's a theory that divorce has increased alongside women's liberation. This is not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing, exactly.
Not a bad thing.
Suddenly
There's good
you can get
reasons for it.
free.
And I do wonder if the fact that more men are now looking at divorce is something to do with an equilibrium that's been reached between women
Because this
and
is
men.
the first time, isn't it? It's the first time that it's more men are searching for divorce than women. Normally it's women that want to get out of the relationship. So I wonder what's causing that swing.
I think it's going to be multifactorial. I'm sure the change in the divorce laws is part of it. And another thing is, this is a bit controversial, but there is quite a lot of research that shows that pornography is linked with divorce. A couple of studies show it's cited in about 2/3 of US divorces.
It's quite a high number, 2/3.
It is. I mean, there's a thing about correlation and causation. Is actually looking at sexual material a symptom of an unhappy marriage? But more research is showing that perhaps there's a directional effect. I think as a society we're quite messed up in our attitudes towards sex, relationships, commitment and marriage.
Yeah.
And I think overall it's a sad thing, while at the same time I also agree that it's better for people to be able to exit a relationship more easily. There's an old saying, I think it's Hungarian, the only thing you should reheat is cabbage. When it's over, it's over. Think of a relationship where it was over, the communication was gone, everything was gone, and you reheated it. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
It doesn't, but I do feel that we need to take a little bit more time to communicate with each other before things are broken. And I think that's the big thing about why going to a relationship coach like Joe or someone like that, just to kind of get you, but don't go too late, but to get you on track again. Because I think a lot of the time there's still often a lot of love in relationships. I'm a romantic, so I'm going to start and stick with this. There's love in relationships, just that you've lost your way. And I think as we get older as women, middle-aged women that we are.
Oh, we watch it.
Hey, but we kind of want to get more adventurous. We still feel there's life in front of us and we want to do things, whereas men tend to want to stay home with their slippers and, kind of make their world smaller. And I just think that with a bit of communication, you can find a middle ground.
Oh, they wouldn't be the men for us, would they?
No, they would not be the men for us.
Oh, no. No slippers and staying at home. I think that's true. I think you do need to communicate. That said as well, people shouldn't beat themselves up too much. I went to marriage guidance counselling. Ultimately didn't save my marriage. But you are right about starting early. Jordan Peterson says that one of the clearest signs that a relationship will end is if people roll their eyes about the other one.
Yes.
I think a key thing is respect.
Absolutely.
You've got to try to respect the partner you're with. Even if other things have gone wrong, you've got to keep that level of respect.
Absolutely.
Never roll your eyes.
Don't roll your eyes and don't speak badly to each other. Speak nicely to each other. I think that's really important. Well, it seems like we've lost a flurry of famous and beloved faces at the end of 2022. Among them, the British fashion designer and punk icon, Dame Vivienne Westwood. Over a 6-decade career, Westwood pioneered new and rebellious ways to dress and also spoke out on political causes, including climate change and the treatment of Julian Assange. Joining us to discuss Westwood's legacy is show business reporter Hayley Palmer. Hello, Hayley, how are you?
Hello, Sonia. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. So tell us a little bit about her legacy, Dame Vivienne's legacy.
Yeah, I mean, she just really was an absolute icon, an absolute fashion royalty. It's just such a shame when I heard the news. I mean, you can see just by the outpour on Twitter just how much she really was loved. I mean, if we rewind back to the beginning, she was actually a primary school teacher before she went into fashion. And then she had a chance meeting with Malcolm McLaren, who was the manager of the Sex Pistols, and they opened this boutique on the King's Road. It had that big clock, which you can still see, and you could see her walking up and down the King's Road. She either had orange hair or white hair. She was just very striking. There was nobody else like her.
About her, especially going back to her primary school days, is the fact that she said that she loved all the kids that all the other teachers didn't like, the kind of more rebellious ones, and you can see that in her spirit, can't you?
Absolutely. And she was not only trying to get the fashion across, she was trying to get that message across, which she did so well. I feel like she mixed politics with fashion and music really well indeed. And when you went to a Vivienne Westwood fashion show, you weren't just getting a normal show. You were getting that show that would be memorable. I mean, I can always remember Naomi Campbell walking down the catwalk. I think she was in about 8-inch heels, something that I definitely couldn't do myself. And I remember she went flying. She laughed it off. I also remember when she dressed her as a traffic cone. I mean, her dresses were featured in the film Sex and the City, the 2008 version. She designed the Virgin air hostess beautiful uniform. And I remember she designed a hat for Pharrell Williams at the Grammys. So she really just does go down in history, and it's such a sad loss to Great Britain.
But one of the things I found really interesting is that she was outspoken politically. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't agree. But one of the things I found really interesting is that Julian Assange wants to get prison leave so he can go to her funeral, because she was really outspoken about him, wasn't she?
Yeah, she really was. Like, I remember the protests, and she was a good friend of his. And you're right, I've been reading in the papers this morning how he wants to leave prison to attend her funeral. They were very good friends. And, you know, when she had something she wanted to stick up for, she really wanted to get that message across. And if you see interviews with her, they're mainly actually not about her fashion. It's about that message. And she wanted people to speak up about politics, speak up about rights. And that is just something that she did so well. And actually, she was working until her dying day. She was writing a book. She was working on her art, working on her designs. And I do know that her husband has been left with lots to do, and that he will be setting up a foundation this year. So I look forward to seeing how her legacy, comes about in 2023.
Hayley, thank you so much for that. And yes,
my pleasure. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. She'll be remembered. So, Laura, do you think that Britain still has its kind of punk spirit, its our rebellious edge? Do you think the British are still like that?
I don't really know. I mean, I don't follow fashion closely, so I'm not the best expert to comment on Vivienne Westwood, but she was this amazing icon, amazing.
But I mean, the British, forget about fashion, forget about Vivienne for a moment. We were the first punks, right? We were the first punks. I remember, you know, kind of being a kind of pseudo-punk. Didn't go all the way, but, you know, I loved it.
I can't imagine you as a punk at all.
Oh, my God, I had black hair, I had the whole goth makeup, I did the whole punky thing, I loved it. And it was about rebellion, and it was about kind of kicking the man and, you know, anarchy. Do you think we still have that as a British kind of identity?
Absolutely. I think we're the political punks of the world.
Do you?
I do.
Even
yes,
after what's happened since 2020?
OK, so Alan Miller was just on talking about how we were kind of at the vanguard of getting vaccine mandates dropped.
Yeah.
We're political punks in this country. Look at gender-critical feminism, pushbacks against the extremes of transgender ideology. That's very much a product of Britain. I suppose I can talk more in terms of politics than clothing, but I think we're always at the edge. We're a very exciting island nation with exciting cutting-edge ideas, and we always will be.
Well, on that note, we are British, we are exciting, and something far more traditional now, as the Catholic worshippers across the UK will be praying for the former Pope Benedict at Mass services today after his death aged 95. Ailing health saw him become the first leader of the Catholic Church to stand down in 6 centuries back in 2013 after serving less than 8 years at the Vatican. King Charles expressed his deep sadness at Benedict's death in a message, as the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, also paid tribute. Here's Karen Walker with a look back at Pope Benedict's extraordinary life.
It's April 2005. White smoke rises from a chimney above the Vatican. A new pope, the 265th leader of the Catholic Church, has been elected. Pope Benedict XVI, aged 78, became the oldest newly elected pope since the 1700s, but also the first German head of the Catholic Church in centuries. Born Joseph Ratzinger in 1927, he lived with his Catholic family in Bavaria. Although his parents were anti-Nazi, Ratzinger was a member of the Hitler Youth. By the end of the Second World War, he was serving as a German soldier. Unwilling to fight, he deserted and was briefly held as a prisoner of war by the Americans. Ratzinger was ordained as a priest in 1951 and was awarded a doctorate in theology at the University of Munich a few years later. He taught at a number of universities before becoming the Archbishop of Munich and Riesling in 1977. He grew close to Pope John Paul II and became one of his closest advisors. Pope John Paul II died in April 2005. Joseph Ratzinger was elected head of the Catholic Church and became Pope Benedict XVI. He continues the legacy of his predecessor by speaking to other religious leaders, particularly Judaism and Islam. He aims to revitalise the Church in Europe and maintains traditional Catholic values relating to sexuality and priestly celibacy. He visited a number of countries in the early years of his papacy, including new guidelines allowing more use of the Latin Mass. He directly addressed historical sexual abuse within the Catholic Church, speaking out against it during a visit to the United Nations, but he came under media scrutiny in his alleged role in the cover-up of sexual and physical abuse cases by parish priests and in schools. The Vatican denounced the allegations as false and calumnious and said its handling of the cases showed wisdom and firmness. In 2013, Pope Benedict XVI announced his imminent resignation due to old age and ill health, making him the first pope in some 600 years to resign. More than 50,000 people crowded St. Peter's Square to watch his final public address. In this year's post-Christmas statement, Pope Francis made a surprise appeal at the end of his address to ask for prayers for former Pope Benedict, saying he was very sick. The Vatican issued a statement that he was receiving constant medical care. But soon after, the 95-year-old passed away in the Vatican, the home of the institution he'd dedicated more than 70 years of his life to. Cameron Walker, GB News.
So, coming to the end of our show, Laura, what do you think is best thing that you're looking forward to in 2023? Can I tell you what mine is first?
Yeah, go on then.
Going out partying with you.
OK, I'm on for that, definitely. I think, well, you know, on the back of that story about Pope Benedict, it's obviously it's a sad loss, and leader of the Catholic Church. He was the leader of the Catholic Church. He was 95. He had a good innings, if I may say. It's a good innings. It's sad, but let's be real. You know, it's 95. What it should teach us is that every day counts. I think we're quite death-phobic. You know, don't mourn that too much. Here's a man who believed in heaven and the afterlife, but you've got to make every day count.
Exactly.
So I feel quite focused on that in 2023. We've had a lot of fun sucked out of us for the last couple of years. I'm pulling it back.
So that's what we're going to do. For 2023, Laura and I have decided that we're going to make every second count. Well, that's it from us on GB News Live. Thank you for joining us. Coming up in a few minutes to look back at a momentous 2022 for the royal family, a year in the royal life.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold with rain and hail snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here's the details. Patchy rain and hail snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog lingering in places. A mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy light rain at times. There'll be a mixture of bright and sunny spells along with scattered showers across northwest England. The showers will be heavy and blustery at times. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although it will stay rather cloudy in the east. There'll be locally heavy blustery showers in the west too. It's a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west. A mild day for all. Cloudy and overcast conditions will persist across East Anglia with limited bright spells. The odd shower is also possible. Cloud will thicken across southern England with outbreaks of rain edging in from the south, turning heavy at times. Rather windy too, especially along the coast, but feeling mild for all. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
I'm Camilla Tominey. Join me on GB News on Sunday mornings for a politics show with personality on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.